The best education that a writer can get is a library card, and to read as much as you can and across all different genres. And that means that if you write science fiction and fantasy, you should be picking up a Regency romance from time to time, or looking at creative nonfiction, or even just nonfiction. It's important to read a variety of voices, a variety of stories, to be able to look at what other writers do with storytelling and language, and to turn it over in your hands and really examine it to see how people construct the stories that they do. And you should see and understand how other people see the world, because every story is always about truth as that writer sees it. Taking time to look at the world as another person sees it builds a sense of understanding and empathy that you can take back to your own fiction and the characters that you're creating. You should always be reading everything that you can, because the act of reading is just as much a part of writing as actually sitting and writing your story. Receiving the award was such a milestone event for me. It's really about the people that encouraged me to fill out the application, but especially to the students that put in their testimonials and the things that they had to say about how creative writing opens their lives. Getting the teaching award was something that I never could have imagined would happen, but really something that celebrates what I think is my very best work in my life. I've always written stories, and I've always wanted to tell stories. I started teaching at continuing education because a friend who was teaching suggested that I look into working with the program, and I picked up a course during the pandemic, and we talked about teaching a science fiction and fantasy class, which is the type of writing that I do. And it sort of grew from there, so that I teach such a range of genre fiction. I teach mystery, science fiction, fantasy, I teach grant writing, and this past summer we launched the very first fan fiction and franchise writing course. We couldn't find it anywhere in the world. I write science fiction and fantasy myself. I work for a magazine in the United States called Uncanny Magazine, and I'm just always working on a story. There's always something in the background brewing. Well, I think the thing that really resonates with me is that in continuing education, a lot of people are returning to the classroom or entering it, and they are coming at a different point in their lives. So for me, teaching community-based programs to adult learners is about creating courses that explore the joy of the discipline. We're not about timelines in my course or deadlines. It's about how can you find the joy in the storytelling and in the creative writing and discover what you want to do and how you can tell the truth of your story. So for me as an instructor, being able to create courses that are open and exploring and that welcome all different kinds of voices and perspectives has given me new insight into how I tell stories and how I approach my craft and the craft of writing. How I balance writing and teaching, sometimes not as well as I'd like. What I find is that when I'm teaching, I'm in teaching mode, and I put my energy and my time into my students and reading their work and providing them with feedback and helping to explore the stories with them. When I'm not teaching is when I have time for my own writing and to be focused on that. The balance isn't trying to do everything all at once, which is kind of like being an adult learner because you have other obligations, you have other things to do in your life. So it's about finding time where you can and creating space and making time for yourself to do the type of work that you want to do. My approach to creative writing is that I never met a deadline I couldn't blow past. I tend to approach my teaching with flexibility, partly because I know that there's no one-size-fits-all method for teaching creative writing or for learning creative writing. Some people need to be at their desk every day writing 500 words or they're not done. But some people need to come and go. And I try and reinforce the sense that creative writing and storytelling is more than just putting your hands to the keyboard or pen to paper. It's about the time that you spend thinking about the story, about reading, appreciating other people's work, doing creative things in your life, even just walking. And so in my classes, we try and emphasize that you can find your path and you can find what's right for you. And I think the biggest piece of advice, or the biggest lesson that I try to impart, if writing advice doesn't feel like it fits you, doesn't mean that you're the one that's wrong. It just means that it's not advice that fits your practice and that will work to find something. Everybody comes to storytelling in a different way. And when we recognize that and we celebrate it, that's when really great things start happening for writers. I think when people are coming back to classrooms or entering them at a later stage in their life, and most of the students in our program are older people, are people who are coming back, people who are at a different stage. They're not 18 anymore, and that's fine. And so the feeling about we can change deadlines if we need to, I think comes as a bit of a shock. Because a lot of people carry the early experiences that they had with education where they felt shamed, or where they felt that they had to do something and they felt pressure. And when we start to give back that flexibility to say to somebody, you don't have to give me an excuse. I take you at your word. If you need more time, you need more time. If you need to spend time with your family this weekend, you should. If you're feeling pressured, or if something's going really well and you want more time, in either case, you should have it, and you shouldn't have to explain yourself. People come to continue education because they want to learn something in addition to all the other things that they're doing with their lives, whether it's work, family, personal obligations. The education that they're doing is extra. And so it shouldn't be a burden to take classes. When I put flexible policies in, I think sometimes people are afraid that they might abuse them, and they absolutely don't. I think it creates a respectful environment that keeps everyone accountable, but just in different ways. Recognizing that just like in any other part of your life, there's going to be times when you need to say, I need some more help. I need more time. Classroom shouldn't be any different. I've said before, I started teaching during the pandemic, and it was a time when people were going in and out of all kinds of circumstances, and at times it was very chaotic. And when I was teaching, it continued on through wildfire seasons. I've had students that have had to evacuate. I've had students with family emergencies, students who have had promotions or something big going on at work. And we've been able to accommodate all of it because we should. And that's how we become better educators and how we're better learners.
Okay.
Because I teach students, and I often see them more than once. So they'll take one class with me, and I'll sometimes see them again. And it's so exciting when I see the development of their work over time, that something has changed and that they've grown and developed. What I hope for my students is that they come out of it with a sense that they are real writers. Lots of people come to creative writing thinking that they're not legitimate. They're not real capital W writers. And the fact is that if you're writing, you're a writer. Whether you're published or not, whether you're at the very beginning stages or you've been doing it forever, we're all storytellers and we all have a story to tell. And that's the greatest hope that I have for my students, that they see themselves as part of this larger community of writers and this larger cultural and heritage-based tradition of storytelling that is unique, but also common to everybody. I want them to feel like they have their place because they do. They're part of it. And I want them to have fun. So I don't ever want to think of my course as being like, oh, it's creative writing, I have to take this. It should be exciting. It should be, I have this great idea for a story. I have a great character. I want to see what I can do. And whatever their story ideas are, my take on it is to bring it. Do what you can. Let's see what happens. Generative AI is, I think it must be for us what it felt like when people saw typewriters or cars for the first time. It's full of opportunity, but it's also full of challenge and pitfall and sometimes danger. In creative writing, there's a lot of controversy around generative AI and intellectual property and generated work. And so my take on it with students is to say that it's a tool, but it shouldn't be doing the work for you. Creative writing and the craft of writing is still a craft. It's still an art. And I think that the very best writing will always be the writing that was created by people instead of by tools. You can use a tool for an idea, but the story should be yours, and it should be coming from you. It should be It should be like what Faulkner said. It's a quote I come back to a lot in my classes, that the best stories, and I'm paraphrasing, are the ones about the human heart in conflict with itself. That those are the stories worth telling. And no AI model will ever get to that the way that you can. And that's why you should be telling the story and not relying on something else to do it for you. I started off reading Anne McCaffrey when I was just a little wee Heather. But I remember reading Dune in my basement over the summer when I was a kid, and it just sort of grew from there. I like science fiction and fantasy because it's a story of possibility. Science fiction and fantasy is concept-driven fiction. It's about an idea, whether it's magic or fusion drives to explore other worlds. It's always about the thing, the concept, the idea, and then the characters that build up around it. I love the ideas that emerge, but science fiction fantasy is also a lot about the things that we're worried about, the anxieties that we have, or the big questions that we're tackling right now or in the period that it was written. And so I like to see that reflection or that echo of the things that we're thinking about and how we represent it in these imagined other worlds. Yeah, I started thinking about fan fiction because fan fiction is huge. So many people are writing fanfic. It is out there, and there's a big community of writers that are working on it, but so many of them don't feel like the work is legitimate because it's not part of the literary canon. It's not something that you find in a bookstore. It's fan created, and it's people extending stories that they love or characters that they just can't get enough of. And I had noticed in my courses that I would get stories that I thought were maybe thinly veiled. I had seen the concept before, and I could see how my students were holding themselves back, that they didn't feel like they could write fan fiction. Either they didn't want to talk about it because it is a stigmatized fiction, or they didn't feel that it was legitimate. Instead of telling people they couldn't, I talked with Conte Ed, and we thought, well, why not lean right into it? Why not build a course where you can do fan fiction, and let's approach it not just about the theory of fan fiction, but actually apply craft elements to it. How do you write those characters in a way that's true to the story? Or how do you do an alt-fic that takes it in another direction? How do we build scenes? How do we build structure into it? How do we explore character development? What does that look like? And I have to say, the first time we ran the course was probably the most joyful experience I had seen students have, because they didn't have to hide the things that they loved. And people were talking about their fandom, about the books, the movies, the comics, the stories they just were so passionate about. And it was so exuberant. It was so much fun. I learned a lot because I don't know every fandom. I have my own. And so I got to dip into other people's love and to learn new things. And I picked up a few books, and that I wanted to read because the fanfic that I read was so cool. But it was just so freeing for everybody to finally just be like, yeah, I write fanfic and I love it. And for everyone else to be able to say in the class, so do I, and then go from there. And we did. And Conte Ed took a chance, and I'm so glad that they did. I'm so glad that I got to take the chance with them. And the students had such a great time. It was fun just to watch them having fun. I would do it again. I am doing it again. We're teaching it this summer. For next projects, I am working on a project with a research group on biomimicry and manufactured ecosystems. So that's something that I'm editing. We're developing a new anthology. Start my PhD in the fall. That's going to be cool. But for courses, we've got fanfic on tap that's coming in the summer. Mystery fiction is coming back around. I love that course because we start off with the ideas, and I just wait to see what the body count will be, because everybody's writing murder mysteries. Many people are. And I'm always curious to see, what mystery will we get? I always go into a course waiting to see what people want to write about. And just like everything else in Conte Ed, it's how do we make it happen? And how do we make this work? And then we do it. I've been there. I know what it's like to feel like maybe you don't belong, or maybe you're not good enough. And the thing that I would say to anybody is, you belong. You belong in content. You belong with us. Come take the class. Have fun. And do it because it's something for you. Not because you have to, but because you want to. And you'll find that everybody else in the class with you is there for the same reason, because they want to be. And if you want to take a writing class, it makes you a writer. Come write with us. Come be with the community of writers. It's where you need to be, and we'll be there for you.